Hello, and I'm Annika Wills, and I played Polly in Doctor Who in 1966, and you are listening to Gallifrey Public Radio.
This is Gallifrey Public Radio, a weekly podcast dedicated to positive enjoyment of Doctor Who. We travel through classic and new episodes, explore the extended universe, and play a few games from time to time. We do discuss news, content that has been officially released, and the occasional interesting rumor, but we'll warn you before anything considered spoilers comes up.
Welcome to episode 507 of Gallifrey Public Radio, where you can tell us the danger of something, but if you show us, we'll be more inclined to listen. I'm Julie.
I'm Kier.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Jay. This week, we are a stone's throw away from the first of 3 highly anticipated specials that bring back Donna Noble and the 14th Doctor. But that's not the only unexpected return to the screen.
As fans have been guessing for months, the guest star appearance of Neil Patrick Harris in 2023 will be the role of the Toymaker, an adversarial character not seen on screen since 1966.
Given the compounding clues that Russell T Davies has been allowing in the teaser trailers to date, it became clear that this slow reveal was likely intentional, and that the showrunner wanted the hype train to be bringing this immortal being to a modern audience.
But who is this enemy? And why is it such a big deal that they in particular are getting a New Who update, as other classic villains have in the post-2005 era?
So we're going to take a little time today to get our heads in the game, pun fully intended, and understand a bit more about the Celestial Toymaker. There's nothing to spoil here, as we don't know the upcoming storyline any more than the average viewer, but we are going to discuss what's known about the character just as we would for one of any past television stories. So if you'd rather come into this totally unaware, we get it. But for us, we're going to go on to move 1024.
When I was preparing some rough overviews of the Toymaker based on what we know from the one surviving episode of the 4 from the 1966 story, there were a lot of comparisons that immediately sprung to mind from a somewhat more modern science fiction character, that being Q from Next Gen, for all you Star Trek fans out there. I know enough about the Q character to know that it sort of drew a bit of a parallel in my mind, but I don't know that particular character well enough to say that certain things may or may not map analog well enough to the Toymaker. So do you all consider yourself relatively next-gen savvy?
I mean, I've watched it a few times, yeah. I know the character fairly well.
Yeah, I've seen some amount of Next Gen, including a handful of Q stories.
Okay.
Yeah, most of my exposure would be Voyager, where he shows up, but...
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think one major difference would be that Q joins the world that we live in. He doesn't pull people into his.
True.
And that's very different. But I think that he can show up whenever he wants to and change reality is very similar.
Right. So for listeners who are sort of getting an understanding of the Toymaker for the first time, there's the baseline understanding that this being, I guess, you could say, I wouldn't even say creature or person because we don't really know for certain, is described as being eternal for all intents and purposes, but lives within a dimension or a universe or a reality entirely of his own. That we get the impression is sort of made by him and controlled by him, but also, I guess, to Julie's point, kind of feels like almost it contains him as well, or he chooses not to venture out of it.
I think it's more that. From what I watched and what we've done kind of research on, it seems like he chooses to bring people, creatures, beings, as playthings and companions to challenge him, and he's unwilling to leave where he feels safe or completely in control. Makes me wonder if he can do the same manipulation of space and time or things if he were not in his own realm.
Okay, sort of a Kal-El's only powerful in front of a yellow sun, not a red sun kind of a deal going here.
Only in his dimension does he have the power to build the games and control things. Or maybe it takes him time to set up the games, so he needs to get that all done before he invites people over to play.
Based on the original set of games that we saw, they weren't terribly complicated, but
super complex. All powerful being required to get those going.
Yeah, hey, hopscotch. That's serious
I
business.
wonder if that's not just a limitation of the production back in the day, because there's nothing that really leads us to that conclusion aside from the fact that they don't actually go anywhere else. But right. I wonder if that's just like we have 3 sets that we can do, so it's all going to be this kind of thing. So I'm wondering if that's not going to be the case moving forward.
Well, I'm still wondering about the point about the limitations or potential limitations to his power. He does, at least reaching beyond the veil, so to speak, does have the ability to pull people in, including the TARDIS, which shows that that's a bit of a flex right there.
Right.
So
I mean, black holes pull stuff in, but I don't know that
TARDIS.
means it's
yeah,
right.
Apparently, yeah.
Well, if the TARDIS got close enough, I think that it may, right? Because they were at the approach horizon, and he said you got to stay this far back.
Well, I guess it depends on how hard you want that science to be on any given week.
Yeah. Maybe through every black hole is the Toyland.
There's the theory that went around that the possibility of this why are we seeing 14? Why are we getting this Dr. Donna return? Is this all just a fever dream? What's going on with all this might have something to do with a bent reality enforced by the Toymaker, which might gain a little bit of credibility in the fact that showdown should specifically be the Giggle, being the third of the 3 specials. So maybe that's kind of the culmination of this whole thing. So I like that if it proves to be true.
But are you thinking then that the Toymaker has recreated the more of Earth? Because it seems like the first episode clips we got were running around, I mean, not games, right? It's dealing with the Meep and the other thing. Right,
the warriors. But I'm saying that this is sort of the thought is that this is a false reality, that the Toymaker chose the moment of regeneration to step in and mess with the Doctor for a bit. And this is literally happening within seconds as we go from 13 to 15.
So
right?
David Tennant, new 14th, is not actually a regeneration of the Doctor. It's just a thing that's in the Toyland as part of the new game.
So the thought goes.
And this is just a bigger Toyland than we got in the original story.
Right.
I think we'll know by the first episode, right? If there's any inkling of it, or if it's, we're just getting an encapsulated episode on that third one.
You always know the perfect question. If you need to know what reality you're in, you always ask who played Marty McFly in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
If they say Eric Stoltz, run like hell.
Or is that like the episode 1 cliffhanger? Like, oh, this isn't reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a character that the Doctor knew going into the original story. And it seemed like they may have known each other for quite some time before that.
Yeah, I guess things get muddy if you try to take things like the novelization of the story into account, or obviously, what's been done with novels and Big Finish, since. But the thought that they grew up together, could have potentially been, or at least had been from the same universe or same basis of origin, in which case...
do we know if the Toymaker is a Time Lord?
I have gotten no indication of
So one of the videos I watched preparing for this said there was an earlier version of the script where he was explicitly a Time Lord, but that was dropped from the final version of the script.
Right.
Okay.
There were a lot of changes that had to be made to the story before anything aired, because they gutted the previous story. Apparently had been a rather malicious use of budget funds to try and get back at BBC Drama.
There went our epic Toyland.
Right, so you're left with a bunch of blocks, and you couldn't even shoot the scenes to be in the scope that they wanted to be. Like all the things that were happening for Blind Man's Bluff and dealing with the little nasty schoolboy were all supposed to happen in these vacuous spaces. Sort of like this, I'm in the middle of this absence of space, right? This nether space, and it's supposed to go on forever. But like instead, you felt like you were inside a drum, and everything was shot with mid-frame shots where you couldn't even see the floor half the time. So they're jumping around and doing all these maneuvers, and you can't even see what it is that they're leaping on. So there's no real sense of danger. But I think the potential, especially for a younger viewer at the time, as far as the impact that could have on taking it kind of had a Squid Game feel to it, right? The whole idea of taking these simple childhood games with deadly consequences, and that, even if the production value wasn't something that we would look at today and say, oh, come on, let's be realistic here. Well, the whole point was we weren't being realistic. And to your 7 to 12-year-old viewers back in 66 or so, that's a pretty profound impact. In walks Russell T Davies saying, I remember having the crap scared out of me as a kid. I think there's something to the fact that there are 3 of these 4 episodes lost to time. So we've run into instances, I can't count how many times, where I'll go back and I'll watch something I saw when I was a kid that had an impression on me, and it didn't hold up.
Right.
So since there's no persistent record of what at least the first 3 episodes of this story were like, all that you're left with is headcanon. And when your head is Russell T Davies' head,
that can be a very scary thing.
That's a big cannon, right?
Well, I believe
that's a double barrel cannon.
You also mentioned that I think it's the novelization that had the point about the Doctor and the Toymaker being from the same dimension. If they choose to run with it, you could take the story we got in The Timeless Child and combine that with that element of the Doctor and the Toymaker's backstory and build off of something that many fans are saying, that's not going to be real canon, we're going to wipe that away.
That's a good point. Something that apparently we're going to be addressing in these specials to a small degree, or at least we know so far that it is going to get some slight inclusion, because people feel free to ask Russell about his predecessors in the showrunner's seat, and he will speak plainly. But I take him at his word. So when he says things positively or negatively, I believe that's what he honestly feels. The thing I'm wondering is the final. We've had a number of big bads that have come back after long absences. Most often the Master, who gets not only in some instances just defeated and slap my wrist and send me packing in my TARDIS, but there are times when there is a massive kaboom and you think, well, they're dead. Or they got, right? So in this case, the entire existence was blown to bits.
It literally turned into a nebula?
Yeah.
So, like, blown to bits is an understatement?
Little bitty bits.
stars were then born, and then somehow the Toymaker became again.
So I have to wonder why. Sure, there's the fun factor of Russell saying, just as Moffat did before him, Chibnall did to a certain degree. Look how clever I can be, and I'm going to do this unexpected thing. But there's something. There is a panoply of characters that could have been tapped to bring back. The Ronnie, for instance.
There's still time for that.
Yeah, the meddling monk, who I've been looking for some time. Right. Speaking of rogue Time Lords.
Yeah.
So why do you think the Toymaker is returning now?
I wonder if it was. I'm not sure what came first, whether Neil Patrick Harris was cast or the role was in the script. Because if you're like, okay, we're bringing in NPH, we've wanted to get him on the show for a while. Let's bring him in for a special. Who would he fit? I mean, the Toymaker is just kind of like, it's right friggin' there. If he decided he wanted to have the Toymaker in there before NPH was ever discussed, that speaks more to RTD's experience beforehand and thinking about like what would be a good thing to fit this story, which admittedly we don't know what the story is. So it might be that nobody else would fit this, but I don't know. I like the headcanon that they had NPH on the phone and they're like, okay, who do we have that's going to fit this guy? And really, I mean, who can you have that's that over the top? So
I like the idea.
I wonder if the order of operations went, they decided to bring back Tennant and Tate to really bring back in members of the audience that have been lost over the last few years to a time when the show was at its most popular. And then at that point, dug back through the annals of Doctor Who lore to find a villain that would allow them to manipulate whatever bits of reality or time they needed to make that jump with the characters.
I like to think that it's a little bit more something with putting the Doctor in a situation where hard choices have to be made. And one of the toughest decisions for the 10th generation of the Doctor was, can I destroy this character or this person being again? And so you're taking something that the Doctor knows from the first moment that they've met them. It's gone through time. Now we've come full circle back around to this generation of the Doctor, and they have to choose again to make that choice. So it had to be a return of a Doctor so that the longevity of the 15th with Ncuti is not started in such a conflict, but that you can still let that play out as the next few seasons go through.
You don't want the new Doctor to sacrifice their companion in a Christmas special?
Right. Well, and the choice to win the game to save we don't know what, right? Mm-hmm. Probably the stakes will be raised. It's not just going to be the two companions that are with the Doctor. It's going to be something much more elevated. So if any of what you all are throwing out there or guessing that this is an entire reality where people are real or something else is changed, mm-hmm. and or Donna, who we know has been given to us in multiple stories where she is the central, most important character, turn left, the Dr. Donna, and now he has to choose again.
Right. The ultimate awful game is a Russian roulette with only 2 barrels. So it's...
Yeah. Or any game.
Yeah.
The stacking, any choice to finish that off where this person is still here, you can't save this one. It's one of the games that we hate to love to hate to play mm-hmm. in our own podcast is which one do you choose? Who would the Doctor save? And this puts it in an episode where you're forcing that choice. And I wouldn't put it past that to be part of the goal of what's going to happen.
As far as the sequence of, how did it come about? I know from the few things that they've been willing to divulge, that Russell wanted to have David involved. David wanted to have Catherine involved. He was actually the one that pushed to have the Donna story worked in. So in my head, this becomes like a sequence of events that, okay, Russell seeks David. David wants Catherine. In order for that to make any sense whatsoever, you have to have some sort of a blurring of the past and either an alternate reality or a manipulation to present time of such a magnitude that an impossible sequence occurs that puts that doctor back in under duress so that they have to be drawn to Donna in particular. So that's somebody manipulating.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, like the circumstances happened where they never met before and they're not quite sure, or they did meet, it's afterwards, but the doctor never regenerated previously, and now it's like coming back to this story.
Right.
Picking up without the, I'm so sorry.
I mean, the Toymaker is a good fit to make that sort of thing happen. Granted, we did not get to see them really go tete-a-tete with the doctor in their original story because Hartnell's health was what it was, and a lot of things had to be shot such that so that he could have a rest. I mean, his health was failing, but he did not want to lose the role. So this would give us a chance to be able to see what happens when this meeting of brilliant minds really goes at it, when the gloves are completely off. And now there's a revenge factor, that it's not just a familiarity between the Toymaker and the doctor. Now there's a seething hatred towards the doctor. So how can you stay within the rules of whatever twisted game he's come up with, but it hurts every step of the way because he wants it to hurt every step of the way?
But can we please not have clowns?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have any clowns. Although somebody did spot on one of the set photos that when there's that, we've seen the promo shots of the outside of the Toymaker's shop, right? And it's got all the little trinkets and the marionettes and stuff. There's over near one of the hanging signs outside one of these little adjacent shops is a little iron wrought clown with the tears exactly matching the ones that we saw in the original story. Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah, so there's probably going to be clowns.
I'm just wondering if it's going to actually solidify what the original thought was, that the people that
sure.
that Dodo and Steve had to deal with in the original story were actually those who lost the game.
He says that.
It was never canonized.
It was never explicitly
that,
said.
Oh, okay. I thought he said that.
Yeah. It's been the interpretation because of the fact that you had actors who were playing multiple roles within that story. I thought, oh, well, you're seeing the same faces. It's not just because Britain only has 12 actors. It's because you're forced to be involved in multiple games and keep losing over and over again.
I thought Dodo asked, where did they come from? And he said, oh, they lost. They are here. Something along those lines. I thought it was, but maybe I was reading and then watching and putting words into the script that weren't really there.
You wouldn't be the only one to do that.
I know, right?
Makes
sense.
As far as expectations. So, we've got some theories as to how this could possibly be happening, but do you now think that there's going to be a strong connection between these three specials, or will they be a little bit more compartmentalized?
I suspect we're probably going to get they're going to be three separate stories that you get breadcrumbs in the first two leading to the third. Because that's what RTD liked to do with his original run. You had the little vote sacks and stuff sprinkled in. People would make reference to the character, or the bad wolf scattered throughout. So I don't think it's going to be like this story strictly informs the next one and so on and so forth. But I think we'll see things in the first two episodes that will come to fruition in the third that you probably won't catch until you go back on a rewatch.
Right.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, I was going to say a similar story structure. I think each episode is going to be very much its own thing, but also very much building toward the ultimate climax of the third episode.
I won't bet against that.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, you would expect, because of the nature of, I wouldn't expect them to be able to figure out the reason why this face again, for the first two installments. I think that has to be sort of the undercurrent. And if the final answer to that is, oh, well, because I put you in that face, remember me?
I think that's how you get an epic storytelling experience across 3 episodes with, we've found out, very good directors and putting their stories together where they know those little tie-ins and can highlight that, but not make it too much. And without saying, hey, I want to make a Doctor Who movie and I want these people to be my stars in it.
Right. I guess that kind of explains too why then if the general thoughts, especially speaking of the directors, as far as what Rachel Talalay had said about her take on sort of a high altitude look at the top line of each of these specials, she calls hers, which is the one we'll be seeing first, as the sort of this classic Who feel, right? Real adventures, strange alien beings, and oddity. The second one, which would be the middle of this story arc, as Wild Blue Yonder, is supposed to be just weird. Everybody's just using the adjective weird. It's out there. It's confusing. It's meant to throw you off. So maybe that's something where all of a sudden everything that was already upsetting is now getting really, really alarming and confusing and has you sort of questioning everything. And then
denouement.
And then the final one ends with, haha, it's because it's been me all along messing with your head up in your chili. So yeah, this is going to be a great few weeks.
Just like it's like when you open the board game box and you think you know what the game's about, and then you get halfway through and you're like, hold on, let me read those rules again because I don't think I got it.
Hand me the manual.
And then finally you realize, oh, okay, I get this now.
We've been playing this all wrong. We should start over.
Yeah.
I hate.
Strong word.
No, I don't use this term often, but I hate the fact that the partnership with Disney or Disney Plus and this distribution channel that has so many positives to it is also making things so irritating. It's a mixed blessing in every sense of the word, as far as I'm concerned, because anytime you're dealing with streaming broadcasts, you end up with things like programming schedules or plan ahead schedules that people start watching and saying, oh, remember the days of DVR, saying, also my DVR said it's scheduled this, that, and the other thing. So somebody must have accidentally put the air date for this episode in early because I know when it's coming because my box is already ready to record it. That was fun for a while.
Yeah.
And now we've got release schedules for the streaming platform that are giving us really great information. Like, hey, we know the title of our Christmas special, which will be the first full episode of our 15th Doctor.
Why are you saying that's irritating, though?
I'm saying because it's a double-edged sword. We get great stuff like that. So, okay, we know that we've got the church on Ruby Road. Church, sure. Ruby, got it. Ruby, new companion, great. So that's going to be loads of fun. Looking forward to it. Really weird that while they're preparing or we're getting information for this, they're actually filming the next Christmas special already.
Yeah.
So reading articles and they're saying, oh, during the Christmas special filming, wait, this one or next one? Which you guys are so far ahead right now. That's weird.
It's so great.
I am not mad. For the record, not mad. I'm okay with this.
No.
Please continue and do it forever.
Right?
We love
Do your
this.
homework ahead of time just in case anything comes up to delay TV production for an entire year.
Yes, thank you so much.
But the flip side of it is that now there's a big question about when different regions around the world who have Disney Plus screening within their respective region, what dates are accurate and what times within those dates. And the more I started reading into this, the more confusing it got, which just led me to remember how much I hate things like daylight savings time. And then it all just went off the rails.
As someone that lives in a place without daylight savings time and on the West Coast and not the East Coast, I think I am the expert to explain this.
Okay.
Typically what happens is Disney Plus has a worldwide release time. It's not like midnight for you where you live and then midnight for somebody else where they live. It's like, this is when it releases. This is when it is available. So I think the BBC will probably have said, this is the time that it should be available. And that's probably going to be based on when they plan to air it. If I had to guess, I would say it would be an hour after their broadcast air on BBC One is when it will be available on Disney Plus.
So that's 6:30.
Well, and that makes sense. Like, that's what everyone is kind of suspecting up to this point, either like same time release or an hour delayed. But now we're getting promotional stuff from Disney Plus in places like Japan saying the special is coming November 25th. In order to have it drop on November 25th in Japan, it's going to have to hit before the 6:30 airtime in the UK. So that's where a lot of this confusion is coming from, because Russell has gone back and doubled down and said, no, it's going to be the November 25th everywhere. And so people are asking, like, what does this mean? Like, does this mean the rest of the world is going to get this before the UK does? Which, given the way that they have been very protective with the new Hooniverse, umbrella and the Tales from the TARDIS, I don't see anyone in the production pipeline anywhere okay with that. So are the production or are the promotional materials incorrect? Or is this like, I don't know how this is going to.
I don't think it would harm anything for the BBC Press Center, Media Center to just explain. If anything, all it's doing is just saying, okay, we're either going to do it simulcast, and it's going to drop everywhere with respect to 6:30 p.m., Greenwich Mean Time, or we're going to do it regionally. And by regionally, we mean that Disney Plus is going to have their options to be able to do it in these, these 16 time zone slots, globally around the international date line, or whatever the case would be. But letting us know, especially now, I mean, we're weeks, two weeks from this as we're recording. So,
do we know what time it's dropping in the UK? Maybe they're doing it at
6:30 p.m.
6:30 p.m.
It is 6:30.
But that's all we know.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the only thing we definitively know.
Some of the speculation I've heard going around is that the people who signed papers at the BBC were unaware of how savvy and flat out greedy the mouse can be, and that Disney has the rights to push the episode at whatever time they want on the day that it airs. So the BBC being, trying to get control of the situation, not sure how to handle it, hasn't said anything because they don't want to have to walk anything back.
Right.
It's the fine print. Everyone has to read it, and somebody missed out.
They just clicked the yes on the Disney Plus user agreement, and
that's what happens when you get Docutech, and then you gotta sign things, and you don't actually read it anymore.
Yeah, terms, conditions, blah blah blah.
I mean, I think as consumers outside of the UK, I don't see this as anything but anything for us to worry about too much, because we're either going to get it around the time that the UK does, or potentially earlier in the day. I don't know, but
yeah, it's true. If nothing else, I think it just means that, well, Disney has had an opportunity on many of their properties to be specific about release times, and they've always avoided that.
Mm-hmm.
When Mandalorian was at its peak and programs like that, they would just say, okay, boop, it's going to be your Wednesday, or it's going to be your Thursday, or whatever it is, and you figure that out. Just when you wake up, don't you worry, kiddo. When you wake up, it'll be there. And that was effectively it.
Joke's on you, Disney. Some of us don't sleep.
Well, I do know that as we were talking about the preparations for this Christmas special versus that Christmas special, and the fact that they are now writing well into Series 15, or as some people are trying to force us to call it, Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
They want to call the upcoming Season 1.
Yep.
Hard reboot.
Oh.
Yeah. Not that it's trying to. This is how the BBC is advertising it.
Yeah. That Shooty's first season will be Season 1.
Which, to some extent...
What is this? New who?
No, I understand it, because you had a lot of people
how much of a nightmare
off.
the episode numbering is already with the 1963 series and then the 2005 series, and now you want to add a 2024 series that also has a Season 1?
I understand it, because now Disney Plus is trying to push it to a much larger audience, and they don't want to be like, hey, come join us for Series 15, and people are already going to be like, whoa, that's way too much for me to get caught up on. I'm out. So they just want to be like, Season 1 of Doctor Who, get everybody in who wants to see it without any of the backstory, anything like that. So it's, I understand why they're doing it. I don't agree with it. It rankles me, but it makes sense from trying to grow your fan base from where it has gotten to.
Well, if that's the case, and they are going to treat this, as Russell has said, very reminiscent of the Eccleston era, and filming with the excitement levels of knowing that you're going to be bringing a lot more new people to the fore, you will not have Daleks and Cybermen in this upcoming season.
I'm okay with that.
I am too. I just want to know how they finally put the Terry Nation kerfuffle to rest, if that is still truly a thing.
A big bag of Disney money.
Right? Or something. Or maybe it's something where there was the rumor for a while that if they at least appeared somewhere, they didn't have to have a written episode, but they had to just, you had to trundle one past the screen at some point.
I think at this point, though, it gets watered down if they're everywhere, always a big bad who never makes it back. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest reveals from, I don't remember if it was Eccleston or Tennant, but we thought they were gone. And then the last one, and then it spins out and there are 4 more, and then they recreate more. Mm-hmm. You can't do that every season and still have a baddie who means something. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with the fact that we're going to take a little breather, and then they'll obviously come back someday.
Sure.
But they've done the big reveals with Missy and all that. It's been done a lot, and I think we need some space.
Right. I am very interested to have some new things to be terrified by. And I also feel that much to Chris Chibnall's defense, as Russell said as well, the involvement of Cybermen and Daleks in his tenure were amplified. That was it the Resurrection? No, not Resurrection. The New Year special, Resolution of the Daleks, where you had that scout and the Dalek that actually, latched on to someone's back outside their shell and MacGyvered a whole new arm. That was freaking terrifying. Yeah. That amplified the Daleks and gave them something entirely new to make them formidable again. And the lone Cybermen and all that whole bit, and then the Cybermasters, whole new level. So great, good on you. Chew on that for a while. Let that rest, and let's go find some new stuff to hate. So it's just a matter of how they handled the legality of it. If there's still any legal muckety-muck to deal with, which maybe it isn't. Maybe that wasn't really.
Viewers don't care about the legal muckety-muck.
No.
Stories.
And I wouldn't say that it had any bearing. I'm just, for curiosity's sake, I just want to know whether there was still any validity to that, so how they handle that. And if it was just Mickey Bucks, then it was Mickey Bucks.
I mean, so maybe you just show some news footage in the background of an episode of 7 years ago today, this happened. And it's a Dalek scooting across the screen.
And the entire world looks at the screen and says, yeah, I don't remember it. I don't know what you're talking about.
They've got candy that's shaped like Daleks and they eat it.
Oh, you mean my pepper pots? This is my pepper pot collection. We do, as we mentioned a little while ago in the Toymaker conversation, there is that whole Haley's conversation about the timeless child somehow connecting to what reality are we currently dealing with. There is apparently going to be at least some mention in the second special that upholds the flux and the timeless child complexity. I was trying to find the right word for it. That was questioned whether or not RTD would just say, no, I can't canonize that. That's too messy. I need to step around this and pretend it never happened. But apparently he thought it was really interesting and intriguing and wants to uphold it. So it's going to get some anchor. I don't know if it's what Haley had hypothesized, but it's something. And it's happening in the middle of that weird Wild Blue Yonder. So
it'll be interesting to see how it kind of gets tied in, how if they're able to sum it up in a way that makes sense to new viewers, in a way that's satisfying to people that actually had to endure it.
I was going to say, yeah, make it make sense to old viewers too, because that threw it.
Exactly, yeah.
What did I just watch?
No shade, but I really trust Davies to stick the landing on it more than Chibnall at this point.
Agreed.
Yeah. More than just being rapid fire soliloquized at the screen. Yeah. The last thing that we have for news here is we're talking about legality here. The idea is that a couple of lost episodes, not having to do with the Toymaker, we don't know exactly which ones, have been located. But the individuals who have the film canisters are reluctant to turn them over to the BBC because there has been a long-standing thought that the BBC will prosecute people who have been harboring stolen material.
They're just declare them pirates, let them have clemency, and then it's over.
So we want to parlay.
So I obviously am more familiar with American law than UK law, but is there not some sort of statute of limitation on this item?
I don't know if there is a standing premise for such statutes in any of those sort of cases, just across the board. But in this particular instance, I have to wonder what the concern is if these are collectors. The individuals who are probably holding on to these things were probably not the original individuals who, depending on how you want to use the verb, they were either lifted or rescued from the trash in the 1970s as they were going to be discarded or potentially even burned by the studio to make space.
When you work retail and you're told to throw stuff out, you damage that stuff out. Most of it goes in the trash. Some of it gets lost in your car. I don't know what you're talking about. I just feel like sometimes those people have alternate choices that get made because they don't agree with superiors and or they just feel like this is stuff that fell into the trunk of my car when I was taking out the trash.
Right? I mean, stuff rolls under bay doors instead of going down the garbage chute all the time. Especially a round film canister, it just cannot be helped.
Right.
Cannot be helped. And that, it's got a lot of round edges to roll on out.
You take it to the basic level. When you throw an object out, is it still your property?
No, the police are allowed to come and grab it. That's why you gotta shred all your trash.
Okay, Haley lives in a very, very harsh dystopian world. For the rest of us, where the sun still comes up in the morning.
I have watched a lot of procedural television. If you don't want the police to grab it, don't put it in your trash.
Yep.
Fair.
I think, to your point, when it is still in your trash can, it is still your property. Mm. Once it's taken to the dump, I don't know who owns dump trash.
Okay.
But when you work for a place, even when you work retail, you are told these things, you are not allowed to take these things. They must be physically destroyed, like old candy, old food and beverage, supplies, or other things that are sold that you're not supposed to allow others to either come and steal it.
Right.
Like, it is a big, big no-no. So, yeah,
Ooh,
I mean, the
I
fact
have a
that people
fun
have
Walmart story to tell about this.
it.
They accidentally ended up with Bloods and Crips t-shirts one time, and those had to be, like, processed through claims, and no one could take those home. But they were hanging in the back room for a very long time before it happened. So, who knows what happened to those shirts?
Who knows, really?
Who knows?
Also, how did Walmart accidentally order Bloods and Crips shirts is a really fun question for all of us to hypothesize on, but that's not documented.
When you're the buyer for Walmart and you binge drink and you think you're supposed to be working and you log into your work account and you order stuff accidentally.
All right, so remember Doctor Who? This is a podcast about Doctor Who.
So somebody should make a YouTube video of like some Rube Goldberg situation where these film canisters roll out of the back room of the BBC and into some poor schmuck's car.
Yeah, it could be done as simply as like the teacher that says, I don't know who it was that was responsible for stealing the box of pencils, but I'm going to turn my back, and if they magically reappear on my desk again, no harm, no foul.
So, but I do have to think that the people who do have these items, they have to be worth some kind of money on the underground retail scale. So would they be willing to just part with it for the good of, oh, I'm going to anonymously mail it in to you and you'll never know that it was me?
I don't know. I'm of two minds on that. I think to a certain degree there are some collectors who would like to genuinely see it back into the greater fandom's hands.
Why haven't they done it before now then?
For fear of prosecution. This has been
Anonymous
a long
Dropbox.
But why would they not have like digitized it and thrown it up on the high seas if they cared about everybody being able to see it?
From what I understand from a lot of the ones that have been recovered, they require an extensive amount of reconditioning. So maybe it's resources, maybe it's know-how, maybe it's I don't want to reach out to the people who may know how to do this because they might not be able to stay as quiet as I can, or whatever the case may be. But if the BBC is true to their word, and they are saying, look, we're extending the olive branch and feel free to bring them back, and we won't, slap chains on you or hit you with any fines. If that's the case, great. But I guess there are those individuals who say that they have at least these two episodes, and there may be others. This may be something where it sort of establishes a floodgate for others who have either truly or not so truly said that they have possession of things or know their whereabouts. There just needs to be something a little bit more certain. And if they can just do that, then I think a lot of this will get moving. We are going to have some episodes done for increased animation. They're going to do a few more of those in this 60th year. So we'll have the Dalek story for that, speaking of Daleks. But can't we all just get along?
I think I also
Really?
saw a rumor that, based on the 60th special, the Celestial Toymaker's story might get remade with animation.
Well, there was that one individual who did an amazing job animating it just as a fan animation project of taking the first episode. And
To get jobs and for fun, I think that he says.
yeah, well, yeah,
Here's my resume.
is now being
Yeah.
and is now so busy that does not have the time to do episodes 2 and 3. Did say though that given his druthers, he would do 2, 3, and 4 because given the freedom of what he's been able to explore in terms of scope with the first episode, he would want to see it carried through.
That makes sense, especially knowing what we know about the budget issues they had in the initial production and how that limited what they could show us. To remake it with animation with the scope that was originally intended by the script, I think is a really good idea.
Yeah. But go out there, look for Celestial Toymaker fan animation. I think Dino Puff was the individual who put it on YouTube. It's there. It hasn't been taken down yet.
There's enough of a disclaimer on every video. It's
I
good.
guess so. But it is good. It is really, really good.
when we come back in 2 weeks, and I can't believe I'm finally saying this, we're going to be talking about the first episode or the first special for the 60th anniversary, The Star Beast.
As it airs on November.
I'm super excited. Like we are within weeks. It's so great.
Yeah. And what we're going to try to do for the 3 specials is as it airs on Saturdays, we'll try to record within the next couple of days following and get it out as quickly as possible. It may still be a couple of days just because we're coming into holiday season and stuff. And we're trying to fit our recordings in as tightly as we can and our editing and release time. So try to get them out to market as quickly as we can, but no promises.
It'll give you time to, watch a couple before, watch it a few times before you listen to what we have to say about it.
Right.
This has been episode 507 of Gallifrey Public Radio. Until next time, this is Jay saying, the only way to win is not to play.
And this is Kier saying, get a special on one day, get 6 days to rewatch it over and over and over again, 6 times, get another special, get 6 days to rewatch it. This is perfect. What a way to end the year.
This is Julie saying, I'll start making the minifigs and etc. so we can play some games of these new episodes as they come out.
Ooh, little tiny meep.
And this is Haley saying, a third season 1? Take pity on IMDb.
We'll see you next time.
I'm Z.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Gallifrey Public Radio. Want to keep the conversation going? You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or just send us a good old-fashioned email to feedback@gallifreypublicradio.com. You can also give us a phone call at 754-225-5477. That's 754-CALL-GPR, and you may hear your voice on a future episode of the show. Everything's got to end sometime, otherwise nothing would ever get started. Join us next week for a brand new episode.
Hi, I'm Jacob Hansen. Gallifrey Public Radio is copyright 2023. We'll see you next time.